Good afternoon. Welcome to our Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, September 17th, 2019. I'd like to welcome everyone here today and call this meeting to order. I would ask if there's any declarations of interest at this time. Seeing none, I will move to community announcements, and perhaps I could start with Councillor Roy DeClement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things looking forward. I understand that quite a few people have asked me actually if I know when the new Longo's is opening, and I think there's something on our calendar for this Wednesday. So that is certainly something to look forward to. On Tuesday, September 24th, it appears that the fire department is throwing me a fire prevention open house for my birthday. So it may have to do with the number of candles that are going on the cake, but regardless, Queensville Station is having an open house on the 24th of September from 4 till 8. So that should be lots of fun, lots of community engagement about safety. And as far as committees and so on, our East Gwillimbury Public Library is undertaking its strategic planning process. They've got a meeting this evening, and plans are afoot for their massive book sale that's taking place on October 25th and 26th. And I'm seeing some really great silent auction prizes coming in as well. So it's not just a book sale, but also a really big fundraiser for our library. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Crone?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I speak for many on this council when I ask Councillor Roy DeClement how many candles will be on that cake.
I never answer that question, Councillor Crone.
It's a much guarded secret. Thank you. I had a great day the weekend at Nature Day at the Ross Family Complex in Mount Albert. It was my first time attending, and what a great event. And thanks to everyone that was there as well. We had a great time at your charity golf tournament last week. I know we raised a lot of money for good causes, and well done for you for carrying on their tradition. As well, Councillor Morton and myself were able to bring birthday wishes to Rita Bonner. I won't tell you how many candles were on that cake, but they were substantial. And the East Gwillimbury Chamber of Commerce tonight is having a networking meeting. So if you're available, come by the Lloyd House in Mount Albert in beautiful downtown Ward 3 and network. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you. The highlight of my last few weeks has been the inaugural meeting of the Holland Landing Community Group. Councillor Foster and I started that meeting, and the community just took over, and they're just an absolutely wonderful bunch of people. And you can all look forward to some great events that they're planning. We'll bring you details in the coming weeks as that coalesces. And they're so gung-ho, rather than waiting a whole month to meet again, they're meeting again in 2 weeks. So it's a great group. Thank you.
We look forward to that. Councillor Persichini.
Thank you. I just want to comment on the Mayor's Golf Tournament. It was a terrific, as always, and congratulations to all the volunteers, because to put that event like this, I'm sure they start many, many months ahead of themselves and work hard on it, because I know we were doing the walk run. It used to take me 8 months, so I'm sure this golf tournament is as successful as it was. And once again, it takes us. So I want to thank all the volunteers and the people who led it, because it was a great evening. It was good food and good time. And we also had the zoning bylaw that we attended. It was a very exciting night and something to look forward to in the future. And coming up events, there is E.G. Minor Hockey Association's 60th anniversary, and that's Saturday, September 28th, 9 to 4, open at the complex. That's it for me, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morton.
Doesn't want to work. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Councillor Crone said, we did attend Rita Bonner's birthday party and presented her with a certificate from the town, and she was quite delighted. And Councillor Crone didn't mention that he related to her as a very wonderful mom and presented her with a lot of mums. And she was actually very pleased with that. And I also had the honor of attending the Queensville Public School on September the 11th.
I was invited to attend along with many others. There was members from the police department, and I think they went to the fire station in Queensville. And and I had never heard of this before, so maybe it's something that we should mark down. And it was a special day of service to honor people that went out and did things within the community and everything else. And they presented us with red roses, which was really nice. So other than that, Madam Mayor, it's been kind of quiet for a change.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things, most of which I had written down has already been mentioned, but a couple of other things. The first meeting of that Holland Landing group that Councillor Carruthers talked about was a little exciting, and it's interesting to see a different point of view, and I think they want to try to do a few things maybe a little differently than some of the other community groups, so we look forward to that. The other thing I'd like to mention is September the 25th, the York Regional Police Candlelight Vigil at Harold Road and 48. If you've never been to that, it's certainly an event worth attending. Other than that, I'll give it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Many of mine, as you've indicated, when you leave it till the end, then a lot have been covered, but I would like to let people know the Sharon Temple illumination was quite an evening a week ago Friday night. It was full and a very nice evening, and I assume a fundraiser for the temple itself. It was a lot of history and makes us very proud that we have such a building as the Sharon Temple within our community. I attended a Canadian Urban Mayors meeting hosted by Mayor John Tory in relation to public transportation and streetscaping. So if I'm talking about streetscaping and public transportation a little more than normal in the next few weeks, you'll know where the material and the ideas have come from. Many of you have mentioned the East Gwillimbury Mayor and Council annual charity golf tournament was last Tuesday, a week today. We had sold out with 180 people golfing, and we raised approximately $75,000 for the Youth and Community Initiatives Fund. I really want to thank our sponsors, our attendees, volunteers, and our golf committee. And if you haven't had an opportunity to thank our golf committee, I know that you will take the time to do so. They start, as Councillor Persis Cheney said, many, many months in advance. And it was we always say the best, but it has a different flavor, and it was very good food and lots of fun, and for a great cause at the end of the day. I attended the community open house for the zoning bylaw. Last Friday, I volunteered for the Magna Hoedown for students with disabilities on Friday. And for anyone who would like to find a cause that they can feel that you've made a difference in the day, I highly recommend doing that. So what they do is on the Friday before the hoedown, the tent is up, the stage is there, the lights are on, and the entertainers warm up with the students, and there were about 900 special needs students there enjoying the music and dancing. I attended the Nature Day as well, and it was wonderful, and thank you to staff. There was a number of staff, both from our organization, but also some partners as well that were there, and the kids were having a really good time when I completed. Coming up, I know that the emergency services for Station 24 in Queensville on the 24th has been mentioned. The luminary with York Regional Police, the Run and Candle Vigil has also been mentioned, and minor hockey. And the last one that hasn't been mentioned on my list was September 29th at 4 o'clock. St. James the Apostle Anglican Church was just south of here, and Sharon is celebrating their 150th anniversary. So everyone is welcome, and they're having a service, and then they are also having a reception to follow. So very busy times, very exciting. And with that, I will move along to item D on our agenda, and we have a presentation. Mr. Clerk, could you introduce our presenters?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, this is probably best handled by GM Molinari.
Thanks. Very pleased to have Dr. Barry Tyler with us today, who is the president of Pestalto Environmental. Pestalto has done the town's, or has executed the town's mosquito control program for the last 2 years, and under Barry's direction has really done a fantastic job. And we've asked Pestalto to come here today and just provide an overview of the program and give council and the public a bit of an understanding of what they do and how they do it.
Thank you, Michael. I just wonder if I have to use the mic.
We need the mic. We're live streaming as well, so.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Welcome. Good to have you with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me and to talk about your program. So, just want to, we need to set it up, right? I'm getting help from somewhere. Thank you. This is the second year for our involvement in this program in terms of the operation of that program. But I was involved many, many years ago. I represented a company called Abbott Laboratories at the time, and we supported the development of the program. I think it was with Jim Matter back then. And we produced the product Vectobac. A little bit about myself. Way back when, in around 98, West Nile virus hit the Northwest US, and I felt that we had the right conditions to have West Nile virus in Ontario. And we had birds, we had mosquitoes that could carry it, and I jumped ship from that company and decided that I was going to try and make a living at the entrepreneurial business of mosquito control. So we were primarily interested in West Nile virus, but we also got involved with nuisance control. So today I'm going to show you an overview map of the program, what was actually treated. And I wish to thank Dave Dodwell for putting the presentation together for me. Now, forward. Where do I point this to go forward? Okay. So the program is basically bounded by Ravenshoe Road on the north and Highway 48, actually a couple of concessions over to the east, to include Mount Albert. And up in the northeast corner, we did try to do some work for Manor Ridge Trail. And to the south, bordered by Green Lane West, and then to the east, Bathurst Street. This is an actual map that was produced by the helicopters that did the program. They can digitally show their flight lines and where they have booms on, booms off to apply the Vectobac. This is a biological program, meaning that we only use products that are environmentally acceptable. By the way, this is, in my opinion, and I'm aware of all the programs across Canada, and I've been involved with them in one way or another. The biggest program, which dwarfs all other programs, is the City of Winnipeg's program. But here in East Gwillimbury, you have the dubious honor of being the second biggest program in Canada. And I'm only talking about the spring mosquito control program. The one in Winnipeg actually goes full season long, involves helicopters the whole season, and they're very busy out there. So I just wanted to point out and use this map primarily as the basis for the presentation. By the end of the season, we had treated roughly 3,885 hectares of mosquito larval habitat. And we did that in 3 days. The program started on April 28th. We arrived April 25th. Weather held us back. We used 2 helicopters initially, and then we brought in a third for the last day. There's a lot that goes into a program, and part of that is getting permits, notification, monitoring. We started monitoring, I believe it was around April 4th. At that time, most areas were frozen, and but there was some mosquito hatch, larval hatch. And then we continued that through the application period, and then went and continued monitoring to see how well we did. I just want to pass around some vials. I want you to see what mosquito look like, and that's, I think, a good start. This is a nuisance program, and it is aimed primarily at snowmelt mosquitoes. Those are mosquitoes that develop in larval habitats, which can be pools in wooded areas. In East Gwillimbury, you have 2 types of woods, deciduous and coniferous, roadside ditches, stormwater retention ponds, and so forth. But really, the woodlot pools and the ditches are more or less the prime target areas, as well as field pools. Now, these little critters start out hatching usually in the southern exposed areas of these pools that melt first. They start out as larvae that are approximately 1 millimeter in length. The vials that I have provided you with show larvae that are in their 3rd and 4th instar. Larvae go through 4 growth stages: 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th instar. Then they pupate. The pupa is like a chrysalis of a butterfly, and then they emerge as an adult. In our program, we basically monitor the development. We try to determine the best time to treat, that we will not only get snowmelt mosquitoes, but also the first summer hatch of mosquitoes. This year, by the time the snowmelt mosquitoes had reached the 3rd instar, or growth stage, we started to see first instar, which means that's the first summer hatch occurring. It's a little antsy because sometimes you'll start to get pupation of the snowmelt mosquitoes, and then you basically have to accept that and then go ahead and treat. We were very lucky this year and got control of those early summer mosquitoes as well as the snowmelt. Moving on, as I said, we treated a little more than last year, 3,885 hectares. The aerial program was completed in 3 days with 3 helicopters. We then went and did some adult monitoring. I will say that it was a very cool spring, and when we monitored adults, it wasn't until the 4th consecutive week of monitoring for adults that we got some decent numbers. We had what we call CDC traps, and I'll show you those a little later, but we had CDC traps, 11 of them. And these were located in the major communities. There were 2 in Holland Landing, 2 in Sharon, 2 in Mount Albert, 2 in Queensville, 1 in Green Lane area, and the other one in Manor Ridge Trail. We also had one in Sutton, just above Ravenshoe Road, off Kennedy Road. That was our control. We compared all of the catches from the traps within the treatment area with the catch outside the treatment area in Sutton. Overall, we averaged 95% control versus what we were basically seeing outside of the treatment area. The average number inside on May 31st, the average for the traps was 14.5, and the number in Sutton was 585. These traps run for 24 hours. So that's roughly a reduction of 96%. And the previous three intervals, we were getting about the same amount of control. We also did what we call sweep net counts, which is where we wave a butterfly net around in a figure eight for 5 minutes after waiting 5 minutes. And the numbers are a lot lower. We did sweep net counts in Holland Landing, 3 of them, 2 in Sharon, 2 in Mount Albert, 2 at 2 locations in Queensville, 1 in the Green Lane area, and again, 1 up in Sutton. The numbers caught were a lot fewer, as I've indicated, because you're only there for about 10 minutes. And still, the control level seemed to be about the same, up about 95%. Overall, we were very pleased with the program. We consider ourselves stakeholders in this business. Our reputation is on the line every time we go out. And I personally get involved with programs like this to make sure the timing is appropriate. Now, I'm not doing that. Who's doing that? Or maybe I am doing it. Did I put the... Okay, so why don't we go back, and I'll just show you to the second or third slide. Can you do that? Okay, so these are figures basically from 2018 that show the helicopter. That's called an R-44 on the left, and it's applying product in the Sutton area. This year we arrived on site, as I said, April 25th. We were on Woodbine. Cooperator allowed us to start there, set up our base, and we started to apply on the 28th, and we were asked to leave because we were too noisy. We were too noisy, so we moved up to the marina in Holland Landing. They were very cooperative. We moved south and east with our application and ended up in Mount Albert for the last base. On the right side is Steve Nicholson. He actually replaced me in Abbott Laboratories as the Canadian representative, selling back-to-back. He's the one with the smile on his face. May I have the next slide, please? This is just to show you what a CDC trap looks like. They use dry ice to produce CO2 to attract the mosquitoes. They have a black light. We tried to set these up in backyards and protected areas where mosquitoes are most likely to spend the day and the evening. At the bottom is a container that catches the mosquitoes when they're driven down by a fan in the actual trap. We collect those, we identify them, and there wasn't too much species diversity. Roughly, there were 6 species. The interesting thing is that what we caught were basically summer mosquitoes. They were not snowmelt mosquitoes. So I concluded from that we were doing a pretty good job. And in the field, I continued to sample there, and we did find the hatches of summer mosquitoes. So they were hatching within a week after we did our treatment. You had a cool, wet spring, and I suspect with the rain, mosquitoes, at least the summer mosquitoes, got bad in some areas of East Gwillimbury. Next slide, please. This is just demonstrating the sweet MEP use. We actually treated Silver Lakes Golf Course this year. We did not the year before, but I thought there must be a fair number of people using it, and with the hope that we could make golfing a little more enjoyable, at least in the early spring. And that's it. So I've tried to keep it short so that there are questions that I can address, or there's time for questions. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Questions from members of committee. Councillor Morton and Councillor Persichini.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Dr. Tyler. You stated that you did treat some off of Kennedy over close to the Mount Albert area. Have you monitored in the Brown Hill area at all? Because it's fairly wet up there, and a lot of people complain about the mosquitoes and that through the summer. And I'm not sure exactly when, but they say it's sometimes it's really they stay indoors. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess the question would be, when did they start feeling that the mosquitoes were a concern to them? Was it later in the summer, or?
I think it's pretty well starts in the spring and goes into the summer.
All right, so on that map, I know where Kennedy Road is, and the yellow area indicates where it was treated. And I will say that the pilots do a lot of this by sight, and I've flown in the helicopters with them, and we can fairly easily tell where the wet sites are, which are the potential larval habitats. It's a little more difficult with coniferous forests, but certainly with deciduous forests, it's not hard. So in terms of Kennedy Road, are they below Queensville Road, this particular little community? Or?
They're actually right over, just above Mount Albert, because they're just south of Ravenshoe and north on the Highway 48.
All right. All I can say
about
is
that area.
Okay. All I can say is that no, we did not monitor specifically there. And what we did do, though, is apparently did fly over. And this would only show when booms are on. So presumably they put product down.
Thank you.
Now, in something like that, they're right on the edge also of the treatment area. And there are lots of woods to the east of there and to the north of there that aren't treated. And it's quite possible there's an influx of mosquitoes from those areas early.
Councillor Persichini.
Very informative presentation, thank you. Just a one question. I'm not too familiar with mosquitoes and things like that. Is there such an animal that can be dangerous to your health and you get stung with them and you get sick and you could, if you don't look after it? Is there such a thing as a mosquito can be dangerous to your health?
Absolutely. I know that even their bites, some people are allergic to mosquito bites and go into anaphylactic shock with it. Obviously, too many bites are not a comfortable situation for any individual. They do carry diseases in Ontario, West Nile virus being one, but not the snowmelt mosquito. They don't carry those. But the other ones that we were picking up towards the end, which were summer mosquitoes, they are quite capable of West Nile virus. West Nile virus is the major one. For animals, it's dog heartworm. We do work in Windsor, and just as a note of interest, I think we've all heard of Zika virus, and that's carried by two specific mosquitoes. And now one of those mosquitoes is established in Windsor. So I think if climate change is really on the go here, we're going to see more of those things. We did pick up what we call the Anopheles genus here. That genus, at one time in Ontario, carried malaria, and it doesn't now. It was addressed many, many years ago, but that's potential as well in the future, probably beyond my career.
Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Dr. Tyler. Thank you for your presentation. Very educational. Felt like I was back in grade 10 biology. Can you tell me this year, was the mosquito problem especially difficult? Because I know from my own perspective, living in Mount Albert, out in the country, I found in the last 14 years of where I've been living, it has been the worst for mosquitoes that I can remember. They were incredibly voracious. I was just wondering if this year was any different than previous.
I think that it was, in that we got a lot of rainfall early. We got significant rainfall events after that. Summer mosquitoes, for the most part, what they do is they lay their eggs along the edges of woodlot pools, ditches, and when you get a significant rain event and it raises the water up, it causes those eggs to hatch. Now, if this year has had more rain than other years in terms of volume, then that reservoir of eggs that didn't hatch last year or the year before because they were along the edge of receding water, but you've got a major rainfall, several major rainfalls that covers those eggs, and they've been sitting there for 4 or 5 years, they will hatch and they will come out, thus producing a higher population than normal of mosquitoes.
Thank you. So I appreciate that. I suspect if we didn't have the spraying like we did, it would have been even worse.
Well, I think so. I mean, people were asking me while I was out there, is this going to be a bad summer? And my answer, frankly, was yes, because we were already seeing summer mosquitoes hatch after the treatment, and they were there, and it continued. The rain continued.
Yeah, thank you. Madam Mayor, with your indulgence, I would just suggest to staff, and I don't know if we've done this in years previous, but I find anytime the helicopter is out, the phone calls and the alarm, sometimes people mistake what the helicopter is for. Maybe this would be an opportunity for us in next year to send out something on social media saying that we are indeed spraying, so we don't alarm our citizens too much. Thank you.
Councillor Crothers.
Thank you. I see from the report on F1 that we spent $3,500 in marketing to let people know. So we'll have to retake a look at that and see how effective we're being with that. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dr. Tyler. When I first read this report, I saw treating ditches, and you keep mentioning about treating ditches. Is that because it's winter and the water isn't flowing yet? Like, I'm thinking, rather than treating the ditches, we need to get that water moving.
Typically, that's a good point. Mosquito larvae do not like moving water, and they will drown because they breathe air through a breathing tube. They hang upside down from the surface of the water, and that's where they breathe, and then they go to the bottom, pick up particulate matter, feed on it, and then go back up to breathe. If the water is moving, then unless they're in an area along the ditch that has vegetation that sort of breaks the current and makes it calmer, they will die. So that's true. But in the spring, snowmelt period, there isn't much movement. There is in some areas, and certainly I didn't find mosquitoes there. But in other areas where there's no movement, you're going to get production. However, I will say ditches were not the major source of mosquito larvae. And I would also say that in the spring, you're not going to find many mosquito larvae in stormwater retention ponds. We don't, and we don't find them in marsh areas. They tend to emerge and develop in the summer months.
Okay, and so where are they emerging in the summer months? What,
Oh, they would be emerging from the same spots as we
Okay.
do in the spring,
Yeah.
but also additionally, they would be emerging from stormwater retention ponds, more from ditches, and more from marsh areas.
okay. So I'll throw that back to staff that maybe we can look at, making sure that our ditches are all flowing, because that will help with the issue. Yeah, like everyone else here, we experience it ourselves. We
Mhm.
hear from constituents. It's wonderful to hear that this is 95% effective. Can't imagine what it'd be like without it. But what would be our cost-effective next steps if we wanted to ramp this up? Because, I mean, this is a quality of life issue for our residents. Yeah, it's a big tag item with $150,000 per year, but I think that there isn't a person in East Gwillimbury that doesn't think that that's money well spent. So if we were going to go the next step, try and get those summer mosquitoes, is there, can you kind of outline to us what that would look like? Is the cost exponential? Is there something that we can be asking residents to do, a kit that they can put in their rain barrels and local ponds and stuff like that? What would you say is the next step?
I do mosquito control, or Pestalto does mosquito control for some regions throughout the summer. And I think the most cost-effective way of doing it is to concentrate on populated areas.
Mhm.
It would bring into account those larval habitats that we don't normally treat in the spring, which I've mentioned, ditches, stormwater retention, and marshes. I think it would be cost prohibitive to use a helicopter, so it would be primarily a ground treatment. I would take solace in the knowledge that typically woodlot pools, for example, will be probably 20% of the size that they were when we did the initial treatment, so you're not talking about as much area. There's an adage that I use that the mosquito that bites you is the one that probably grew up next to you. And so what I would be doing is concentrating where we have high human population, Sharon, Holland Landing, and I would certainly not be treating areas that are more rural. I would concentrate basically on a 2-kilometer radius about those communities and treating within that 2-kilometer radius, including areas within the communities. It's intensive. The difference between snowmelt mosquitoes and summer mosquitoes is that snowmelt mosquitoes have 1 generation a year. So you treat them, they're gone for the year. The problem with summer mosquitoes that makes it a little more intensive to treat for them is that they can complete their life cycle within 7 to 10 days and have multi-generations through the summer. So it means monitoring on a weekly to 10-day basis, and it means treating for almost as long. In the programs we do, we find that an area can be productive 1 week and not another. It's not a constant production area. Most areas are not constant in production. In terms of doing that type of thing, yes, I do it elsewhere, so it's possible. And I think what people can do for themselves, around the house, there are a lot of areas that hold mosquitoes. Abandoned tires or tires at the back of the garage that holds maybe a liter of water and produce thousands of mosquitoes. There's a product called Muscuron on the market. I actually invented it, and so I know something about it. You put that into a tire, it will last the whole summer long. In fact, it will probably last into the next year. It can be used in rainwater drums, and it will last the full season. So there are things that people can do, and also, just drain things. Drain the bird bath. If you've got your If there's a clogged drainage pipe in your eaves trough area, clear it up, let the water run. As I said, the mosquito that's most likely to bite you is the one that grew up next to you. So that's a possibility. If I were to give you a price to do a program as I've described it to you, you're looking at about $50,000, which is probably another third of what you're currently paying.
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, would it be possible for staff to investigate this a little further and come back to us with a recommendation prior to our budget cycle of what it would cost, along with, I think, some of the comments that were raised about communication, some of the stuff that you've said I've seen, but I think we need to do a better job of that. I would also love for us to be able to have some of these products available through the town for residents who would want to pick it up. To treat their own rain barrels, if that was something that would be possible. So staff could bring us back a report on next steps. I think that would be very worthwhile. Would you like me to make a motion to that effect?
We'll finish with this
you.
presentation.
Yep.
Perhaps you could bring it up under other business at that
Thank you.
time. Thank you. Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Dr. Tyler, I can't help but can't think of but how popular you must be at backyard barbecues during the summer, being a mosquito expert as you are. I'm just wondering, for me, a lot of the questions that I start to see on social media or that I get is from residents who want to understand a little bit more about the product that's being used, and they think it's a pesticide. That's not the case. I wonder, just since we are videotaping this, if you could speak a little bit about the Vectrobac and how it works.
Okay.
Please.
I wrote a book on this, so I can help you.
Briefly, perhaps.
Briefly. I should say that any material that's used to control something is called a pesticide. So Vectrobac is a pesticide. The active ingredient is Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis. Israelensis is kind of key. It was first found in the Negev desert in Israel by a scientist. And he noticed a pool with a lot of dead mosquito larvae next to a pool with live mosquito larvae, and he investigated this. From that point, the US Navy took out a patent on it, and then that patent was basically sold to a couple of companies to produce, and it's produced through the fermentation process. It's a bacterium. It's a bacterium that is naturally occurring in the environment, even here. And it's not a very aggressive bacteria in that if we release it into the water, it does its job and then it dies off quickly in competition with other bacteria. It is very specific for certain biting flies. It evolved with mosquitoes, and indeed, we also use a liquid formulation for the control of black flies. It does not hurt non-targets. It doesn't hurt animals such as fish, pets, livestock, people. In my younger days, I used to drink it at a presentation just to show how good it is, and the only thing that went wrong was I lost my hair. That's a joke. Not really. Okay. But the point is, I've read and done literature search on this that involved over 40,000 papers. And there is no instance that would indicate it's dangerous other than to mosquito larvae. It has to be consumed by mosquito larvae. Once you have pupation, it doesn't work anymore and doesn't work on adult mosquitoes. But it works very, very well on mosquito larvae. Have I covered that for you?
Thank you very much. We're all much more informed on mosquitoes and how we get rid of them. And I will echo the comments of all of our members of council that our community really appreciates it. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. I have a motion to receive, please. Councillor Persuccini, all those in favor? And that's carried. F1 is a report, and I'm going to just move a little bit from our agenda and move up F1. So I will ask Councillor Crothers to take the chair for that one report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is on page 63. It basically summarizes what we've already heard, but it also includes the costs of the program that I referred to earlier. General Manager Molinari, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing further to add this time.
Any other questions from the committee? On Councillor Groen?
Not a question, just thanks. I understand we came in under budget on this, and I think that's fantastic news. Thank you very much for achieving that.
Wonderful. I'll hand the chair back. Oh, sorry, we have a motion on that, don't we? There is a motion, be resolved that the Community Infrastructure Environmental Services Memorandum dated September 17th, 2019, entitled 2019 Mosquito Control Program be received. Can I have someone move that? Councillor Roy DiClemente. Questions?
I just wanted to add to that resolution, Madam Chair, based on your inquiry as far as having staff research an enhancement to the program through, I guess it was on-ground treatment of stormwater management ponds and marshes in populated areas, and suggested that staff could research that and report back to us with some recommendations. I just wanted to include that in the resolution.
Okay, thank you. I had some wording here that I was going to say for new business. To direct staff to investigate and bring a report back to council on possible cost-effective next step to bolster our mosquito control program, including increasing targeting of summer mosquitoes, extending our communication strategy, and looking at products we may be able to offer our residents to control mosquitoes on private property. Does that work for you?
That's fine, thank you.
I'll send that to you. So that is moved by Councillor Roy DiClemente. All in favor? And that's carried. I'll turn the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We are at our second presentation, and Mr. Clerk, could you introduce our presenter, please?
Would love to, but I think this is best served for CEO Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And in your role in the community as chair of the Police Services Board, I think it's important that we recognize our strong relationship we have with our policing community. And in that note, I would like to introduce today our new Superintendent of District 1, Randy Slade. He's here today with some members of his team that he's going to introduce. He's got some big shoes to fill, though, and I was going to tell him a little bit, but we've been well served over the last many years. Superintendent Mark Brown served us well and moved into retirement, and then most recently we had Superintendent Michael Slack, who's a resident, and Randy's a resident as well. And in the short time he's been superintendent, we've had a good chance to meet him, and look forward to his overview today.
Madam Mayor, councillors, thank you for the opportunity of coming here and introducing myself. Presentation would be a stretch. I mean, I can try and stretch it that far, but really this is just my chance to introduce myself to you. I'm still becoming very familiar with my new role in this building. You're right, I do have some big shoes to fill, although in our world they're two ERU guys, so really it's not a challenge, right? With me today is Rich McCarty. I believe you know both these individuals. They've presented with you before, and Della Rankin. So without going into, say, community safety, obviously it's the key to all the messaging with the police and their community. But for me to give a fulsome discussion, you have to give me some time to get my feet on the ground in that building. I can give you my history. So in 1987, I started with the York Regional Police. I worked out of this building for 4 years. I then was transferred to Richmond Hill, where I worked there for 5 years, then transferred to the drug unit. I'm going to start aging myself really quickly here. Came back to Richmond Hill to work for a year, promoted street crime unit out of the detective office there for 4 years, over to 4 District for a year, homicide for 8 years, special victims, which is our child abuse, sexual assault, and child internet exploitation for 3 years. Then I managed our fatal motor vehicle, which is our major collision unit, for 3 years, promoted to inspector in charge of road safety for 2 years, promoted to superintendent in charge of court services information management for 2 years, and now here. So to suggest that I have a I thought I turned that off. That's embarrassing. So I know they know I'm presenting. I know they're out there and they know, right? To say that that this opportunity is great, I get to start and finish my career in the building and basically my hometown. I moved up here from Scarborough 32 years ago, and this is where I've raised my family. To say that I'm familiar with the issues and challenges within one district would be an understatement. I do. I take them to heart. My family was raised here, and they now are here raising their family. So I would say that we're local residents now. I don't know. I do have the top 10. I have the top 10 crime stats for within one district for your area specifically. If you're interested, I can give them to you. This would be the envy of many communities to suggest that these are the crime stats, the top 10 crime stats. That being first is impaired. Those are both citizen and police generated. They make up approximately 13% of all the calls for service. Domestics, I feel it important to share that domestic violence is one of our call generators. It takes about 10% because it is a very large time consumer of officers' time. It can, to manage a domestic violence with a charge could be 2 officers off the road for 4 to 6 hours. Check welfare. That's with the growing senior community, always wanting to find out if there's something wrong or if there's someone in need of help. Driving complaints, hazards, that's speeding related complaint areas, thefts, assisting with people who are suffering from mental illness, silent 911 calls. These are all low percentage, below 10%. Disputes, suspicious vehicles, and suspicious persons. These calls make up 68% of the calls for service within East Gwillimbury. You're not seeing the key, robbery, break and enters. These are the true, the victim-related that play a significant, these are areas that I investigated for a very long time. And we all know that anyone who suffered from a break-in feels violated, and they are violated. So still, we have room for improvement, obviously, but all in all, we're trending a slightly below average for our calls for service for East Gwillimbury, and that is including with your boom in your population. So basic overview, new command here since the middle of July. I saw what Mike has done with respect to the presentations to council in December. There is no way I was going to even attempt those PowerPoint presentations in the short term, but I hope if you're interested and you are interested in something similar to that, I'd be more than willing to provide that for you.
Thank you very much. You've been many, many places in a short period of time. That's an incredible career, and you're not finished yet. So we'll be very anxious to work with you. We always have a tremendous relationship with our York Regional Police, and I know with the community as well. They're very thankful that we have you there to keep us safe on a regular basis. I know that many times I hear that East Gwillimbury is one of the safest communities in York Region, and we hope we can keep it that way. Are there any questions of the superintendent? Perhaps we'll have you back a little later into the new year. Sure. And an opportunity to talk to us a little bit about what's happening around our community and some stats at that point.
Definitely, more than willing. And I have been reached by other councillors from other municipalities. My badge number is my email address. Do not hesitate to call me or contact me. Okay? My door is open for you for anything you need.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Could I have a motion to receive? Councillor Morton, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Take it with you. Take it with you. Okay. I have no other presenters on my list, Mr. Clerk, is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, and we're at deputations now.
Thank you. Your first deputant, Madam Mayor, is T. Walter, President and CEO, Newmarket Chamber of Commerce, making a deputation to committee regarding Smart Commute Central York.
Good to have you with us this afternoon.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Tracy Walter. I'm the President and CEO of the Newmarket Chamber of Commerce and a longtime resident of East Gwillimbury as well. With me today, I have Jennifer Breen and Andrea Stevenson, who are our program leads for Smart Commute. Smart Commute Central York is a transportation management association which operates as a program of the Newmarket Chamber of Commerce, working in partnership with York Region. Smart Commute Central York services the northern 6 municipalities as outlined by the purple area on the map that's being shown. There are 13 Smart Commute offices across the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. Our goal is to promote sustainable travel to reduce traffic congestion. The town of East Gwillimbury has been a member of the program since 2008. The East Gwillimbury 2010 Transportation Master Plan states, it should be noted that stable funding to Smart Commute Central York programs are recommended upon review and initiation. Given that a new plan is currently being developed, we felt it a good time to provide an updated overview of the program. Transportation is the #1 concern in York Region, and the increasing growth in the area is causing municipal and regional governments to look for other solutions by encouraging active and sustainable modes of travel. East Gwillimbury has just begun its rapid population growth. According to the region's travel demand model, local gridlock is projected. As traffic congestion continues to increase and the climate crisis continues to escalate, creating a community that embraces active and sustainable travel will enable EG to maintain and improve the health and safety of area residents, as well as preserve and expand the town's vibrant economy. Doesn't seem to want to move now. Okay. Perfect. As of June 2019, Metrolinx is no longer funding the program. While this presents a challenge, it also opens up the door for us to focus on much-needed community transportation demand management, in addition to existing workplace programming that we were concentrating on previously. Our proven success strategies can be used in the community to normalize sustainable travel behaviors, whether it be to school, work, to and from the GO station, or within the community. Oops, it went one ahead. There we go. Smart Commute Central York has a proven track record of success when it comes to changing travel behaviors. Since 2007, Smart Commute Central York has been helping people discover active and sustainable travel choices. Employees who work at Smart Commute workplaces are 19.2% less likely to drive alone to work. As an example of this is South Leak Regional Health Centre. Since joining the program in 2009, the number of employees driving alone to the hospital has decreased from 82% to 66%, reducing congestion in the community and relieving parking lot congestion for all of us that use South Lake. The percentage of employees at Smart Commute Central York workplaces driving alone has decreased almost 7% in the past 2 years. In addition, we've had some impressive results in our communities. Newmarket, a funding partner, has a few examples. Our annual Bike to Work Day event encourages commuters to try cycling to work, with 2019 being our biggest event yet, with over 300 people coming out. Smart Commute has also helped the town of Newmarket economic development when they sought the expertise of Smart Commute Central York when pitching to Celestica to move their operations and 600 staff to Newmarket in 2018. They were worried about transportation and commuting, and Smart Commute Central York made recommendations on transportation options. Celestica was able to minimize turnover during the move, and the follow-up survey indicated 23% increase in carpooling, which equates to more than 200 carpoolers each day. These are just a few examples. If you can move the next slide for me. The region and local municipalities have limited staffing, and transportation demand management through Smart Commute is an economical approach to extend resources at both the regional and municipal level. Our expertise, tools, and strategies can address transportation demand challenges and help municipalities achieve their commitment to maintaining and improving quality of life in their communities. As it continues its rapid growth, EG has recognized that it must do so in a sustainable manner to ensure social well-being and environmental responsibility. Leveraging the expertise and experience of the Smart Commute Central York team makes financial sense and is a low-cost solution to ensuring these outcomes. Thank you for allowing us to present today. If you want to learn more about the program, we do have a video and we've included the link, and we'll be following up with staff to discuss some program opportunities for East Gwillimbury. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Questions of Tracy? I have one question that I know that the carpooling signs for employers are usually full.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if that is a good strategy for employers that don't have it to get things started.
It's a great strategy. In fact, we encourage it for municipalities, for public buildings as well, and for employers. Where we have them in place for employers, they're working extremely well. It is reducing the people that are, and one other thing, and East Gwillimbury has actually been able to take advantage of this too, is our Smart Commute program offers an emergency ride service. So if you are doing a carpooling and for some reason your carpooler couldn't, they had to go home because their kid was sick, or for some reason you don't have a ride home, you can submit that that ride home by taxi, Uber, whatever way you went home, so that takes that fear away.
Thank you very much. I see a challenge. I look at the Newmarket numbers and see a challenge that maybe we should be taking up in the next a little while.
We'd be happy to help you with your challenges.
Thank you very much. Could I have a motion to receive, please? Councillor Roy DeClemente. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.
Your second presenter, Madam Mayor, is Kay Smith, resident, making a deputation committee regarding a request for a bylaw pertaining to pigeons in town residential zones.
Good afternoon. Good to have you with us today.
Hi, Madam Mayor, councillors. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. As you know, I'm here to propose a bylaw with the keeping of pigeons on residential lots. If you are not familiar, pigeons, in particular their waste, cause a variety of fungal and lung diseases, which the Canadian government states may be a health hazard, in particular to those with weakened immune systems. So I'm proposing that we create a pigeon bylaw that can regulate the keeping of pigeons just to ensure everyone's safety, in particular address the sanitary disposal of pigeon waste, the pigeon allowance, as with more pigeons come more waste, and the maintenance and upkeep of the pigeon structures. So the current situation, why this is of particular interest to me, we share a property line with a neighbor who has a lot of pigeons. That alone is a bit of a concern. However, my mom has recently been diagnosed with cancer, which puts her at higher risk. Sorry. So I would just like to move forward with a pigeon bylaw just to ensure that everybody can be healthy and safe. And, you know, there is some concerns now about how the waste is being managed. So I just want to ensure that it's being done so in a sanitary way. And just for the safety of everybody. We're a growing community, and with growing community, you know, we are evolving to meet the needs of our growing community, and this being one of them. People want to keep pigeons, and that's fine, but I just want to make sure that we're doing so in a safe way. I've put together a document if anyone's interested in it. What it does is it outlines the particular diseases that pigeons may cause. It also outlines various pigeon bylaws in the surrounding communities, such as Richmond Hill, London, Ajax. I've particularly outlined exactly what it is we are proposing. So the sanitary disposal of the pigeon waste, the pigeon allowance, as with more pigeons comes more waste, and the pigeon structures. I've also included some stats just from the Government of Canada regarding the health hazard with pigeons. And yeah, I appreciate you giving me the time to speak today. I'm more than happy to support in this initiative in any way that I can. But ultimately, I just want to ensure the safety of everybody in the community as we move forward and we grow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your documentation was, there was a lot there.
There was.
And I learned a lot about pigeons,
As did I.
and also interesting the number of communities that have a bylaw, and as you know, we don't. And so I suspect that from your presentation, we will be looking at having a bylaw to monitor those that do have pigeons. But I was surprised at the number of communities right across Southern Ontario that have a bylaw. So I think you've done some work already for our bylaw department. It might be a little easier for them to reference some of these. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Questions? Councillor Roy DiClemente.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Ms. Smith. I wanted to commend you for the tremendous amount of research that you put into your report, and I was really struck by how thorough you were and how well you put forward your idea and your argument. And from my perspective, I think it's not just a bylaw issue, but it may actually be a zoning issue. And we've had in the past few weeks and months, we've had people come to us not just about pigeons, but other animal husbandry issues. And I think rather than simply keeping it just to pigeons, I think it would behoove us to ask our zoning and planning staff to look at this, and obviously with input from our bylaw staff, but to have them research this and report back to us with some recommendations about what we might do to move forward with not just the pigeons, but sort of animal and avian husbandry regulations, because it's not just that particular animal that cause issues, but or that bird. But that would be my recommendation, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Foster.
Not a question, Madam Mayor, but just a statement. I have been working with some of the residents on the street about this problem. Staff, I believe, have attended at least twice, different departments. So we are doing what we can at this point. But I do believe it is time that we, like to echo Councillor Roy DiClemente's statements. It's about time we had a look at this. I did live near a sawdust business for quite some time when I was younger that caused this town some issues over lots of other things. But one of the issues they had was a large number of pigeons that took residence in their barn. And I do know that they had employees that suffered health problems that were specifically related to the pigeons. So I think it is something that we do need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crothers.
Thank you. I want to echo the mayor and Councillor Roy DiClemente's words about how thorough you were with this. And when I have to admit, when I first heard a pigeon bylaw, I thought, what? And when I read through this, I thought it was very, very thorough. I also think that we need to be thinking about combining this with something else. I wouldn't want a situation where we have a bylaw for everything and anything. So my concern, the ones that you've raised, as well as animal welfare, and as Councillor Roy DiClemente mentioned, I think we need to be looking at a number of different species and making sure that we're looking after their welfare as well as any nuisance that can be caused by it, and seeing if we already have bylaws in place that can deal with some of the issues that you're currently experiencing, so we can expedite getting this resolved for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other comments or questions. Councillor Roy DiClemente, would you to move this resolution? And I'm not sure, you might want to change it a little bit.
It's not grammatically correct. I did send something really quickly to the clerk while we were discussing this. Basically, that we receive the report and that planning staff, with support and input from bylaw staff, research and report back with recommendations for enhanced animal and avian husbandry regulations and or bylaws.
Great.
All those in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Your third deputant is M. Braithwaite, CEO, Blue Door Shelters, making a deputation to committee regarding the work of Blue Door Shelters.
Good afternoon. Good to have you with us again.
Good to be here.
It's been a
Thank you.
while.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Michael Braithwaite, the CEO of Blue Door Shelters, and thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, for having me in today to talk a little bit about the work of Blue Door, but also housing and homelessness in general. And if you've been paying attention to the federal election right now, you'll see one of the main issues that keeps coming up is housing affordability. In fact, actually today we are discussing with my colleagues Emmy and Alex who do the real work at Blue Door. Today our rental index came out, and unfortunately it showed how many households are spending over 30%, which is the threshold recommended, and 50% sometimes of their household income on rental. And unfortunately, York Region had 5 of the top 10 listed in there. So it's very, very expensive to live in York Region. East Gwillimbury was not on that list, which was great, but it was 5 out of 10 in York Region. And the work that Blue Door does spans across the region. So I want to tell you a little bit about Blue Door. There we go. So Blue Door has been around for 37 years. And in fact, 2 of our services and our admin offices are just in the neighborhood on Yonge Street, off of Yonge Street there. And so for 37 years, we've been supporting thousands of people to get housed across the region. In just last year, we supported 604 households, and we housed over 350 individuals across the region, which is tough when you take into consideration the low vacancies here across the region too. We have 3 emergency programs along with other supports that we have at Blue Door. Leader Place, which is our family emergency housing, which is about 10 years old, and that's just up the street here in EG. And we have Porter Place, which supports men experiencing homelessness. And men experiencing homelessness, that's the largest population that experiences homelessness across the country. We also have Kevin's Place in Newmarket that supports youth experiencing homelessness. Let's talk a little bit about homelessness in Canada across the country. Across the country, on any given night, you'll have 150,000 to 300,000 people that will experience homelessness. And in York Region, we'll have about 1,500 people on any given night that will experience homelessness. And to put that into perspective, when you think of it this way, 1,500 people that will experience homelessness. In our region, we have 160 emergency beds, and that supports the 1.2 million people in York Region. That population is growing. And if you look at it, say in comparison to Toronto, with a population of 3 million, and they have 7,000 to 8,000 beds to support. So you can see our work is cut out for us. The answer is not moving forward more and more shelter beds, but we need more and more affordable supportive housing stock and programs to support those individuals. And we're working hard to do that. And you see some different stats there as well that is not taken into consideration all the people fleeing violence at home that are forced out into emergency shelters as well. So why do people come into homelessness? I think for the longest time, most Canadians, if you talk to them about homelessness, they think of homelessness as the older gentleman on the corner asking for change with a sleeping bag downtown Toronto, right? It is, like I said, 1,500 people in the York Region. Unfortunately, it does exist up here, except it's not all that visual. Remember my daughter when she was 13, and we lived in Markham. We were driving through, and she said to me, "Hey, Dad, this is great. There's no homelessness in Markham." And you know, those to me, I'm thinking, well, that's a ridiculous statement. And she doesn't know what I do for a living. Like most kids, not paying attention to that. But what it showed me is like most Canadians, because she didn't see it, it didn't exist, or what she thought homelessness looked like. She didn't see that, right? And it's just a little more spread out, and there's different paths into homelessness. We talk about structural factors of homelessness. That's affordability, adequate income, or health supports that push people into homelessness. And then we have systems too. So if you're a child in our CAS system, child welfare system, really 70% of them will fall, 70% of youth who experience homelessness were in that system, because at 18, you're done. And I have 34-year-old at home right now. But she had a family to fall back on, right? For people who are 18 coming out of that system, we're launching them into homelessness. People who are young offenders who come out and can't attain homelessness as well. So there's all these systems that are broken that are launching people into homelessness as well. And then there's individual and relation factors. So 80% of youth have said that the reason they fell in homelessness was due to family breakdown. So divorce, violence in the household, that type of thing. And it makes us think that these are the reasons, these are the things we have to rally around to solve it. So aside from the human cost of people spending a night on the street, and for any of you who have ever done that, I know the fire chief here spent the night with me a few years back on the street. It was minus 25. It was tough. It was a tough night. We were on bikes to simulate. A lot of people ride bikes year round. That's their mode of transportation, especially in York region where we're challenged. And it was minus 25, and it was a tough night. So aside from that human cost of people will die if we don't do something, there are huge costs to homelessness. And that traditional response, that reaction to we need more shelter beds, we need more respite centers, just put a roof over their head and we're good. You see that a shelter bed, a monthly cost for shelter beds, almost $2,000. You see, if they're incarcerated, that goes way up. And you do have people that will commit crimes just to get warm and get adequate medical care. Hospital bed, and we've talked with South Lake and others who said, yeah, we keep people longer because we have nowhere to discharge them to. Or we're going to put them in homelessness and their health will get worse. And then you look at transitional housing, $1,200. You look at affordable housing for a month if we're to support them. And that will point to that housing first theory. If we house people, those costs come way down. Not only do we save lives, we actually save a lot of money as well. And you look to that, a person who's housed, their annual medical costs would be $524. Someone who's experiencing homelessness, that goes up to around $2,500. Right? So they're more likely. And we see that all the time, unfortunately, with Blue Door, the number of calls because their health is suffering that we do to emergency services to support them. And we're working hard to change that. And I think the way we approach homelessness is changing, right? It used to be that we'd say, let's build more emergency beds and let's do that. It's very expensive and it's not all that effective, to be honest. And then we did a little bit of prevention on the left side there, and then we did a little bit of housing, right? We want to change that model. So emergency, which is very expensive, and we'll always need some of it, will shrink down, and then we'll focus more on prevention. Can we fix those systems going forward? We did something at Blue Door in partnership with the region of York, a program called Diversion. It's very, very simple. When someone calls in and asks for a shelter bed, we ask them a series of questions. We ask those questions because maybe they don't need to go to a shelter to start down that slope. And in doing that, we diverted 20 to 30% of the people. It was a short pilot. 20 to 30% of the people that called in, we diverted to better housing supports. They stayed with family. We helped them with rent. We did different things and worked with them so they didn't enter into that shelter system. That's a form of prevention. If I know with Councillor Brothers a while back, we worked with the school board on a program called Upstream, where really you identified early factors and with students and address those factors that would lead them later into school dropout and into homelessness. Investing in prevention makes sense. Can you imagine if every high schooler knew how to read a lease, helping their parents, knowing their rights going forward so they weren't illegally evicted? Things like that with prevention, and then housing stock as well. We looked at that. When people are housed, they're healthier, they're able to contribute back, they're able to hold down jobs. So we need to increase our housing stock. I know it's easier said than done. That's why we have to be creative. That's part of the reason I'm here today. Housing first is a philosophy you might hear of. Back years ago, we always said, okay, before we find someone housing, they have to be clear of addictions, they have to be healthy, they have to have a job, and then we'll find them housing. And what we found out is that if you actually house someone first and wrap those supports around that individual, the chances are they'll get healthier a lot quicker, they'll hold down a job, and they will get out and will end chronic homelessness. So housing first is a great philosophy. You'll see that across Canada and across this region. Just recently, the region of York has been accepted as a Built for Zero community. And what that means is in the next 5 to 7 years, the region, along with partners like Blue Door, 360 Kids, Yellow Brick House, Belinda's Place, and others, are working towards having ending chronic homelessness, meaning that chronic homelessness is if someone is spending longer than 6 months at a time on the street. So they're out there and they're spiraling into long-term homelessness. We plan to have pieces in place to end that in the next 5 to 7 years. So we're going to be a Built for Zero community. So having said all that, how can you help? How can this council support? We talked about innovation, and we're looking at different things across different best practices, not just from across Ontario or Canada, but across the world, things that have worked going forward. We are looking right now, we know that we have emergency housing, and to move them out of emergency housing, so families, individuals, or our youth, we need a housing stock. And there are thousands of vacant homes across Canada. Some of these vacant homes, I think, are in EG. So if you know of a vacant home, maybe it's owned by a developer, someone who doesn't know what to do with it, we could work with them if it's a little bit of capital that we have to invest in, or if that home is not going to be, it's been purchased, the land by a developer, and there's homes sitting empty there for 5 to 10 years. That's 5 to 10 years of housing that we could provide. So if you know of those in your ward, or someone we could talk to, when a developer does come forward and says, I want to build, can we take some of those homes and designate them to, say, a Blue Door or others around affordable housing? We say, give us 5, and they can be scattered. And we're not just talking about shelters here. We're talking about affordable supportive housing going forward, not building more shelters. There's some people with higher needs that will go to different services, but so many of our clients and others across the community, they just need a safe place to call home. So we're looking for you to speak with developers, introduce myself and my team to developers so we can have those conversations moving forward. So if you know of any of those homes, please let me know. We have a new social enterprise coming forward. It's, again, best practices from across the country. The trades are experiencing a lack of new talent coming in. What we know in the GTA, you need to make about $21 to $28 an hour to maintain a 1-bedroom apartment. So we have to be smarter in how we employ our clients and people in need across the region. So we have partnered with LEUNA and other unions, and we're applying for some government funding to run a social enterprise called Construct. What Construct does is we look for general labor jobs. We're looking for work with general labor. It's cleaning a construction site, working with a developer, washing windows in town, any general labor piece. We employ them, we train them, and get them some certifications. We do an 8-week work placement, and then we launch them into trade unions. Building Up, which is this type of social enterprise in Toronto, has an 85% placement rate in trade unions. They start off, coincidentally, making $21 to $28 an hour. Different apprentices. We're filling that. We're getting people into the trades so they can build more housing, hopefully some of it affordable, so everybody wins. It's a career they can take with them and maintain their housing going forward. So we would look to the town too, if you have, and it's a community benefits type of program. So we're working with the region to say what community benefits pieces can you, that the town is currently contracting out, that you could give to a Construct program to say, hey, we're going to give you this work. We're going to pay you what we normally would in any contract. You're going to do quality work because someone's leading those people. And yeah, but there's going to be a community benefit because people in this community and others across the region are going to benefit from that work, launching them forward and out of homelessness. So we're looking for you for that type of work. Looking to launch that in the spring of 2020. That program is called Construct, the social enterprise. And of course, for you to attend and participate in our events. This year, first time at East Gwillimbury, we are going to do the coldest night of the year. This is done across Canada. They do it down in Newmarket. I'm sure we'll do it better and show them how it's done. But we're going to do it this year. It's February 22nd, coldest night of the year. It's a 2-kilometer or 5-kilometer walk. It's pledge-based. We all come together. It's very cold for the purpose of raising dollars for Blue Door to prevent and end homelessness. So I hope you'll all attend, have a team, come out and rally. It'll be a great night, fun night. We're going to get local community businesses around Yonge and Green Lane involved in that. So that's how you can help out. Housing, if you know vacant houses, attend our events, and think about that social enterprise coming up. Thank you. Oh, sorry. We just, when you have time, there's a link there. We won't play it today. Just 2 weeks ago, City News did a piece on a wonderful family that came from Newfoundland that we helped house. and they were eager to get their kids back to school, or 3 kids. But it's an example of the work we do at Blue Door moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. We're very blessed to have Blue Door and Leader Place in our community, Porter Place and Leader Place. We know firsthand. Many of us have been there at one point or another to drop off, to pick up, to be a part of a special event, and we know that it really does make a difference in the people's lives, but in our community as well. Thank you. Are there questions at this time? Councillor Morton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Braithwaite. Have you been working with the Ontario Command, Royal Canadian Legion in any way? We have a project that all branches within our York region give donations to a program that's called Leave the Streets Behind. And over the last 2 or 3 years, they've taken a number of veterans, and not just, I read something the other day that there are actually more women, more female veterans on the street than there are male now. And I was actually blown away by that because I did not realize that. But if there's an opportunity that Blue Door can work closely with Ontario Command, that there's money that we can give and support that we can give through the Legion.
That would be, if any introductions you can make would be most welcome. We know that it's 2% of all people experiencing homelessness are veterans. Our veterans deserve better. There's no reason for our veterans to be homeless, and many of the men and women that come through our services are veterans, and so we've supported them. Be happy to work together.
When you find out that they are, do you give that information to Ontario Command?
I'm not familiar with it, no. Alex might tell me different afterwards. This has been around a lot longer, but I'm unsure.
But if you need any information, be pleased for you to get in touch with me, and I will give you the contacts down in Aurora. So they're fairly close, and there's a lot of money that goes through there that will be able to help our veterans, but we just don't know where they are and how we can get a hold of them, and perhaps Blue Door is a way of doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Crothers.
Thank you. As Michael mentioned, we met years ago, and when you first presented this, it really changed my thinking on it's not more beds that we need. It's the prevention on one end, the affordable housing on the other, and that message needs to get out to more people. I'm hoping that you're talking with our provincial and federal colleagues, especially in an election year. They're always very willing to listen. I think that message has to get out to them really, really clearly. I also think that more of our residents need to hear that it's not about shelter beds, get an idea of who's affected, that sort of thing. And I'm hoping that maybe we could have Blue Door at one of our future open houses, have a table to talk about what you're doing there. So that would be a good way to get message out to the residents. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing anyone else. Can I have a motion to receive presentation, please? Councillor Foster, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you so much for being here. I have a feeling that we're going to be working closer together.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, your fourth deputant is Jay Gamble, President making a deputation committee regarding items H1, J1, and L1.
Welcome, Mr. Gamble. Good to have you with us today. Since you have 3 specific items you're going to be talking with, I would assume that we would give you 5 minutes for each one. However, I'm hoping that now that you're at the podium, you might make it a little shorter than 15. But I'll leave that up to your discretion. Mr. Webster.
Madam Mayor, I've been here for 15 years, and I think this is the first time we've had a multiple request such as this. So in that regard, Solicitor Horner contacted Mr. Gamble And I believe he was working towards trying to see if we could get these issues scoped to a 5-minute slot for the three. And we'd like to try to do that. And as well, that was the conversation held.
Thank you. I wasn't aware of that, so I will lean to that end and hope that you can work within those parameters.
Well, the first presentation I had was basically more towards the 15-minute. I got an email saying no. So I've had to pare it down and unfortunately miss quite a bit of what I had to say.
Okay.
So I just have to say, in this case, I will have to make a presentation at the next council meeting or the next one after that. I think it would be, however, preferable if we got rid of it in one shot. Easy way of doing it both ways.
If you have been given the directive of 5 minutes from our staff, then we'll work with the 5 minutes. I can give you a little bit of latitude, but certainly not 10. If you've pared it down already, then let's go.
I guess I did check into your procedures, and it was my understanding that these were separate issues, totally separate agenda issues, and that they should get 5 minutes per item, as we've had many people in the past have put in 4 depositions from the same household, but still been given the credit for that time. I'm asking for no more than the same consideration.
Go ahead.
I'm just kind of happy to offer some comments on the procedural bylaw. Nobody has a statutory right to appear unless it's a statutory public meeting and make a deputation. So, and any deputant appears at council and the deputation is received with the consent of council. If the deputant is received, the bylaw provides that the period that you have to speak is 5 minutes, but council can, with a majority vote, go longer, or council can actually contract that time. So that's kind of the story around the 5 minutes.
Thank you. So you've pared it down to the 5 minutes.
I pared it down, but I don't know if I got to 5 minutes or not.
Okay, well, we'll pare it down, and I will give you a sign at 5 minutes. It's not going to be 10, but if you can wrap it up at that point, then no, not 9, not 9. Let's go with 5 and go from there. And perhaps there'll be questions from members of council that will bring out some of the points that you have had to remove. So with that, I will start the clock.
I'll see how fast I can speak.
Thank you.
Okay, anticipating the denial, I've reserved the right to modify my deputation to conform. If I'm unable to complete the deputation today, I will file another one next month for the remainder. I appreciate how diligently council has fought to remove the EP proposed zoning. Having now read Minister Clark's directive, More Homes, More Choices Act 2019, I realize the council is between a rock and a hard place. It appears to direct councils to procure whatever lands are required by whatever means are required. I can only implore council to stay the course and insist that the zoning bylaw of 1997 be upheld without so much as a change to a period. It is my understanding that if the smallest change is adopted, the bylaw is appealable for up to 1 year. Clarifications such as the notes for informational purposes they want to add to the end could simply be a brochure sitting on the desk at the planning committee saying, folks, you got to go look at these things. I don't think we really have to change a bylaw for that. As far as the Section 357 of the Municipal Act 2001 reads, gives the authority to municipalities to cancel, reduce, or refund property taxes as a result of a change event. The most common change events are demolition of a building, razed by fire, etc., or a change in the use of the property. These change events typically reduce the assessed value or change the assessment class of a property, which results in a reduction in property taxes. I propose that we remind any level of government or government agencies, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, that any further layers of regulation or environmental planning will almost certainly result in a devaluation of said properties and a potential significant loss of tax revenue. Overview of the proposed changes to the provincial statement. I did submit something earlier, and I'll just basically summarize it to say that I do believe it must include, as an overall statement in that everyone has the right to own private property, and no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property, while respecting the rights of private property ownership as per 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Canada is a signatory to. Canada is the second largest land mass in the world. We have one of the lowest population densities. Surely we can find or create necessary land without infringing on existing private properties. A quick note on the 404 connecting, 404-400. And this is a case of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. I'll admit it right up front. The proposed route would come within approximately 400 yards of the northernmost limit of Oak Street. That would make it approximately 700 yards from my location. Excessive noise throughout River Drive Park, which cannot be ameliorated by erecting a wall like they did in Sharon. After all, it'll be a raised causeway. You just can't put a wall in. Air and, most importantly, water pollution will be a huge factor, as the highway will be constructed across significant wetlands. These conditions, which have been previously identified, restricted, or prohibited as development lands of any kind. There'll be a further reduction in the enjoyment of the residents' private property, and again, will likely result in the land value being reduced and subsequent tax values. At the very least, I understand that the province can just say, forget all the regulations, we can do this. At the very least, consideration should be given to moving the bypass a little farther north, as after all, it does at the 400 and the 404 come over and come down south. If it went across straight or went a little bit north, it certainly wouldn't hurt. I do have one or two questions. Why is the town offering the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority an additional 100 acres of EP land when they already regulate 75% of East Gwillimbury? I just fail to understand why we have to offer them everything or anything. They have 3/4 of it now. How greedy can we get? We've also asked for a copy of the maps of this 1,000 acres. We have been unable so far to procure those maps, as no one seems to know where the properties are. I may stand to be corrected. Just one small mention, and I'll close up. I noticed on the website this morning that in addition to the presentations given by the LRSCA, Conservation Authority, I can't get that in one breath, and the town has now included a great deal of verbiage on the history, et cetera, of what's gone on. But I failed to see any mention of any resident feedback that occurred at that meeting, or anything to include the tone of the meeting, or anything. I guess basically, we're requesting that council conform to their agenda of openness, inclusion, full disclosure, integrity, and diligence at keeping the public fully informed. We are not your enemies. We want your support, and I would hope you want our support. We're after the same thing. Please don't shut us out. Keep us fully informed. Announce the fact that 100 people turned up at a meeting and said, we're not happy. Well, they're not happy at you. They're not happy at the situation. But keep them, all they're unhappy about right now is we're not being informed, or we're getting stories from the Conservation Authority, from this guy, from that guy, and it's just a bunch of finger pointing. We don't need that. That's not my style anyway. I would rather be direct. If I make a mistake, tell me. I'll admit it and apologize. And that's all I can ask for. We have so much confusion surrounding this. People are saying, well, this is going to happen. Well, no. Just because he says it's going to happen doesn't mean it's going to happen. And I think perhaps we have been guilty of spreading some misinformation because we have received the misinformation. And we've asked questions and we haven't gotten necessarily full answers. We may have gotten a partial answer. It's like anything. If you can tell someone something, you can give them the half truth. But if you don't say after the comma, it says, however, it's totally misconstrued.
Could you wrap up now, please?
I will wrap up with pleasure. I would just say, please, guys, talk to us, and not just staff. We have to talk to the councillors. We have to talk to the mayor. Because after all, you guys direct the staff. The staff do what they're told, I hope. That's all I ask. Please be open, full disclosure, transparent. We want to work with you. We want to help you. We want to give you the ammunition to go back to the Conservation Authority or the province and say, look, we had 100 people. At our next meeting, maybe we'll have 200 and 400 and 600. All of a sudden, they're votes. That's what people understand. Thank you. Oh, sorry, any questions?
Are there any questions? Not at this time. Okay. Could I have a motion to
Thank you.
receive, please? Councillor Crone, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. That's all I have for deputations on my list.
Madam Mayor, that is all that was on the advertised agenda. However, there was a request submitted by a P. Vivero, just submitted an hour prior to the meeting with respect to committee of the whole items H1 and J1, in addition to municipal council item G1. And I should indicate that item G1 on the council agenda is with regards to simply a letter received from the Honorable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, regarding update on Bill 108. So in accordance with the procedural bylaws, beyond the scope, the deadlines to submit deputations, so the request is up to council to entertain.
Would seem an hour before. I'll just leave. How do members of council feel about an added one at this point? Councillor Crone, 5 minutes. Anyone else? Comment? Okay, I'm not seeing negative, so a 5-minute presentation. Sorry, just a moment, please.
No, I think we need a motion to waive our procedural bylaw in order to. So, I think Councillor Crone just did that.
He just did that.
Yeah.
I would so move that it's a 5-minute deputation. I would suggest we waive the procedural bylaw.
All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. I would hope in future it could be less than an hour in advance.
Yes, well, generally it has been, though I have been accepted before with a last-minute notice. But I will be very brief. I actually have to leave in less than 3 minutes, so I'm going to be very quick, and my comments are very short. I am actually very thankful for some of the speakers today who actually had, I believe, information brought forward, be it group homes, be it about animal husbandry, all of which affect zoning, and I think are things that I've asked in the past be looked at, such as the chicken bylaw. I've asked in the past that chickens should not be zoned to 2 acres. I believe that's unconstitutional, and that the zoning of group homes, as I have brought to the attention of your good counsel, Dean Horner, that has already been overturned in 4 major municipalities, and it is deemed an offence under the Ontarians with Disabilities Act. I ask that be reviewed again. I do wish to thank council for the opportunity to have spoken, while informally, that at least at the open house that was made available to myself. So a thank you to all who did so. I did refer to one item out of the memorandum simply because I think the public may not take note of it. And I simply would ask that perhaps in future, council perhaps could bring back to us their reflections on how, or maybe council, it may be Mr. Amuno, our head planner, who's very wise on these matters, that this may impact this LPAT proceeding regarding the zoning, and commentary on how that may work in our favor or not, as some of the items included broadening of their authority on these matters, that they can come up with final decisions. It removes certain third-party appeals, and it also promotes the development of affordable housing and inclusionary zoning, which would include such things as group homes, and it may even go beyond that. So I would ask them for their, not at this moment clearly, but their commentary in future if they could, because I think that may be helpful in doing what I believe we all want, which is an expedient resolution to this zoning matter that meets with everybody's liking. Sorry, you're just going to forgive me because I'm trying to now hurry. So sorry. I just need water. So yes, the 1,000 acres, I did get questions from residents who were there, and I don't know if they got brought up to council members' attention, but some people were concerned whether some of this going on as relating to, I believe it's in the schedule today, H1 and J1, we've got the PPS review and the 400 extension. Some wondered if the EP zoning had been placed there in the beginning to devalue their land so that when expropriation time comes, their lands would be purchased at a lesser rate. So certainly getting these matters at hand would be appreciated. The 1,000 acres, that has been proposed as well as the wording changes back since April. And yet there's no disclosure on that. So again, as Mr. Gamble, I ask for full disclosure on these matters and any other commentary on how the PPS, like I said, perhaps not today, how this might reflect and perhaps if it makes any difference in our stance or how we proceed with these matters. There was no display of these maps nor of the wording changes to the public meeting, so I would expect that in future, if this is going to come to council for a vote, that be done. And I agree with Mr. Gamble, a pamphlet and perhaps some online information might be the best way, rather than wording changes inside the bylaw, to have this done, such that people have contact information, emails, etc. Think something that's on hand and that they will actually act on, because our what we truly want with a bylaw is to people to follow it and it to be adhered to. And that is really good when we make laws or bylaws. That makes excellent law when we actually have it being implemented by our residents. So I would ask that suggestion be considered. And just for sake of time, I'm going to leave it at that, other than, was there one other quick thing? Yeah, I agree with looking at the animal welfare and husbandry and the Blue Door. Yeah, and I guess just really re-examining when they look at those exclusions and allowances for properties on the PPS, et cetera, for comment on that specifically so that I'm clear. Thank you for your time and thank you for having made the exception, and I appreciate you having listened to me.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion to receive?
Thank you.
Please? Councillor Crone, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, Mayor.
Mr. Clerk, do we have any other deputies at this time?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. With that, we will move to item F, and with Councillor Crothers in the chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. We've already dealt with F1. Moving on to F2, Joint Community Infrastructure, Environmental Services, and Emergency and Community Safety Services Verbal Update, Consolidated Traffic and Parking Bylaw. I'll turn that over to you, Mr. Molinari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Further to our September 4th, 2019 memo in discussion with Council, staff are proposing to bring the draft traffic and parking bylaw to the October 8th town open house. At the open house, town staff will be available to address any questions, explain the bylaw, and have a bit more dialogue with the public at that time. Following the open house, CIS and Emergency Services are proposing to bring back the consolidated bylaw for Council's consideration. on October 16th.
Thank you, Mr. Molinari. We have a resolution, be it resolved that the verbal update regarding the consolidated traffic and parking bylaw be received. Can I have someone move that? Councillor Foster. Is there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Mr. Molinari, do you have anything else to add under CIES?
Nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Any questions from members of the committee on CIES? Seeing none, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item G is Emergency and Community and Safety Services with Councillor Roy DeClemente in the chair. However, her chair is empty right now. I expect that she will be back shortly, but I will move to H, which is administration with myself in the chair, as there are no reports at this time with that. Mr. Webster, do we have any updates at this point?
Madam Mayor, I guess a real-time update might be the whole notion of deputations. And it's unfortunate the folks didn't stay, but thankfully this is being videoed. And deputations, so we have multiple deputations on multiple items. We have a procedural bylaw, and I think it might be a little dated. I think we may want to take a look, staff team, at better rules for these as to scoping them. Today's deputations cited 3 reports, but certainly went well beyond input on those 3 reports. I don't know if that's the intention. I think thoughts were, if you're a deputant, there's an item on the agenda and you speak to that item specifically, and maybe we have to be clearer. The one deputant, the one resident, did provide us with some notes, and the staff team did go through them this morning, and we have answers for these, and it would be nice to be able to dialogue, because I think it might actually negate the need for a deputation in large cases. So that, combined with serving on the board of directors for the Ontario Municipal Administrators now, I do know that some municipalities are looking at some of these procedures for public meetings as well. And things such as there's a council code of conduct, there's a staff code of conduct, and there's now some municipalities that are adopting citizen code of conduct for how to have decorum and proper, the ability to hold meetings in a respectful manner on all parts. So I just wanted to provide some notations to council that staff would be willing to take a look at some of these if we got council direction. Have some consultation, and maybe bring back some revised parameters that might be helpful for deputations and citizen engagement as we move forward.
I certainly would welcome that as chairing many of them. I also find that after we have 2 or 3, the mind wanders just a little bit. And if we were able to have written submissions as part of our agenda, I think that that would be really helpful to have an understanding of where they're going, what their long-term goals and objectives are as being in front of us. I think would help us to scope in on exactly the points that they're making. Some are very succinct and are very you know right away what their goal and objectives are, but in some cases you're not quite sure at the end of the day what is it that they're really wanting. So I don't know if that's happening in other municipalities. We can be a leader if we so choose. And the whole timing issue, I think, is needs to be looked at as well. There are multiple. We're in a position now that many of our issues are complex, and so a 3-minute or a 5-minute sometimes just simply isn't enough for people who have researched in advance, provided handouts to us, that kind of thing. That I think we may want to see if there is some latitude with that as well as the timing on making sure that they are on the agenda. I'm not sure that we were very compassionate today in letting somebody just speak. Often look at decisions made outside of the rules that sometimes become precedent setting. And my concern is that now that we have done this, then people might expect it in the future. And if we can tighten that up, in all fairness, if it's an hour before our meeting, then if you have a written submission, it should be long before that. It should be when the agenda goes out. So we are as prepared as our presentations are. I guess that's a lot of bits and pieces, but I think it's time that we had a look at what we're doing and see if we can streamline it in some way. Councillor Persuccini.
I think we should just stick to the rules. The rules are rules. End of story. Thank you.
Councillor Crothers.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. My comment was about when we're generous. I mean, what's 5 minutes? We're here most of the day. It's nothing to listen to another 5 minutes, but I heard both of the deputants today say, this is what's happened in the past, therefore I'm entitled to. And I think with that kind of thought process, we have to be careful. And to Councillor Persuccini's comment, we need to enforce the rules if that's what people are going to do. I always want to be listening to residents. I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to speak to us on important issues and are given the time that they need. But I do think having it in writing in advance, it helps me to process it. It helps me to get clarity from staff if I need to. I think that we need to be very careful with deputations that come before us when there is a decision to be made by council, because sometimes we can be given misinformation, which we don't really have time to clarify. We might not know it's misinformation to ask the right questions about. So I think, adopting a procedure where you can't deputate on something that is currently on the agenda, which is what the school board did, and we found that very helpful. Another thing the school board did was a written application to be a deputant, and that went to, we had a special committee of the board that reviewed those and often directed them back to staff before they were allowed to deputate the board. So I think we just need a little bit look at our process to make sure that people aren't coming straight here on a whim and taking up council time, that people have a real issue and that this is the right place to be dealing with it. And I think that's the main comment that I want to make, is make sure that we're open for people to come talk to us, but make sure that this is the place where we can deal with their issues. Thank you.
Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to think that, we have, as a council, have some flexibility. You let situation be the boss. That's certainly the way I used to operate when I was in business. It's having people come here wanting to make a deputation late. It's not been a big problem of ours yet, but I would certainly support putting some belts and braces on our rules around making presentations. I really do like your suggestion, Madam Mayor, about having a written submission. I wouldn't want it to be, I would like to probably put a cap on that. I don't want to be reading War and Peace of a submission. And I think the 5-minute presentation would be an excellent executive summary. There's an old saying that if you cannot properly explain something in a short amount of time, then perhaps you don't properly understand it. And so I think, and that's not a commentary on anyone that's been a deputant here today or previous. I just want to be clear about that. But I think there's a notion that if you're going to make a quality presentation, you better get to the point fast. And 5 minutes, I think, is sufficient. Thank you.
Mr. Horner.
Council's comments are really timely. The clerk's office is engaged right now in terms of putting the final strokes on a review of the procedural bylaw. So we've got the benefit of your comments now, and we'll take those back, and perhaps we can provide you with some options, and when we come forward with the draft bylaw for your review.
I don't think anyone here wants to make it so onerous that people do not come here and speak to us. However, the timing of it and the content. And I might even say in past times, not today, but in other times, the courtesy and respect that is expected at that podium needs to be clear when people come here to spend time with us in our meetings. Look forward to it. Thank you. I think we finished that one, and we will go to item G, Emergency and Community Safety Services with Councillor Roy D. Clementi in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item on our prepared agenda, which is a report regarding our fence, pool enclosure, and division fence bylaws. Chief Dawson, did you want to kick this one off? I believe staff have a presentation, but I'll let you set the stage.
With thanks and through the chair, while Ms. Nichols sets up for a brief presentation before we go into the report. And this is simply a case of a long-standing issue, trying to do some housekeeping and updating with the appropriateness that's required. And so Ms. Nichols will talk about what we have, what we propose to do about it, and any support that anything we might need. And with that, I'll pass it over to Jennifer. Thank you.
Madam Mayor and Council, staff, and members of the public. In front of you here is just a high-level presentation in regards to fences, to just an overview of what we have, some of the challenges, enforcement challenges that we're having, and what staff are proposing. So what we currently have are two bylaws. Fence bylaw, in a sense, regulates the height requirements and location of fences within the town. Also includes regulations in regards to pool enclosures, as well as a fairly outdated cost-sharing bylaw that was put in place in 1999, which also has schedules attached that reflect a map from 99. So definitely outdated and in need of a little bit of updating. So some of the enforcement challenges that we're having, the main one is what we're finding is approximately 70% of the fences that are erected in town are in non-compliance with the bylaw. The main issue is the open style construction versus closed. We only allow open style construction, as well as I'm finding the height requirements, the heights are increased a little bit more than the 6 foot that we currently allow. Also, I'm also finding people are using different materials. We specify just particular materials when we deal with our pool fence regulations. So so one of them is that PVC fencing. Setbacks, and we currently have no set fines for those immediate offenders. So some of the proposed changes is we would, is proposed as 3 separate bylaws. So the fence bylaw would be a standalone bylaw, and the pool enclosure another. We did get recommendation from our prosecutor that this is a better tool for us to separate the two. Of course, would be the elimination of that open construction provision, as well as a proposed height increase, as well as more provisions to regulate the livestock of fencing, snow fencing, arbors, privacy screens, and site triangles. So we currently have nothing to deal with privacy screens, which is with the new construction is an issue that we're facing. People are putting them up, and we have nothing to deal with this. So the other item would be fence variance provisions. Currently, as it stands right now, if someone wanted to come in for a fence variance to request a height or setback, that type of thing, they would come in front of council and request that variance. This proposal would have those residents come into the appeal committee and a process in which to do that. So again, that's up to council as to what your thoughts are on that. So moving on to the pool enclosure, again, put provisions in to deal with swim spas. Those we don't, again, an older bylaw, but we're seeing more and more of them, and how are we going forward addressing with some of those. Clearer for residents who are constructing a pool, step-by-step requirements of what is required in the provision specific to the pools. The cost-sharing bylaw or division fence bylaw, basically it's a guide for property owners to recover the cost of a fence that has been erected or repaired. So currently, it is an older bylaw that we have now. The proposal would be would go by way of dispute through a civil process, and it would be an opting out of the town, opting out of the fence Line Fences Act, which by doing so, we do require to give residents a step-by-step guide of what the process is. Included in that is templates for residents to provide, like template letters for residents to provide their neighbors if they're having issues with that cost sharing issues. Also to add, staff are proposing that we go back to the open house October 8th with a survey to get a little bit more feedback from residents as to what they want and feel for height restrictions and some other areas within the bylaw. So just, I pictures say 1,000 words. So to the left is your open construction. Currently, that is what is permitted. And to the right, obviously, is your closed, where we're finding in many of the new subdivisions, that's the new construction that fence material people are using. Just a comparison, very few have provisions in regards to the open style construction. We are consistent. Some of them go from 6 feet to 7 feet in height requirements. So just a comparison for that. Next one. And then you can, yep, and then that's how it connects to the strategic plan. So yeah, so like I say, we're going to go to the open house to get a little further public feedback to see what residents want in the bylaw, and we'll report back.
Questions from members of the committee? Mayor Haxon.
Thank you very much. Long overdue. A lot of work to get here, so thank you. What do we do with the myriad of fences that are out there that are not compliant at this time?
So we are strictly reactive based as far as enforcement goes. It does make it challenging. I'm primarily the inspector that will go out to do the pool inspections, so I will advise residents that they are in non-compliance with the bylaw. But however, I'm there for the safety aspect for that.
The other question you asked us about the appeals committee or whatever. Myself, I don't want to be a judge and jury of the height of fences. So I think the appeals committee is the route to go. I'll go along with my colleagues. That's all for now. Thank you.
Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you. This was extremely interesting reading. I had so many questions, but then they would get answered as I read more. I don't quite understand what a privacy screen is versus a fence. Can you just help me understand that?
So your privacy screen, so I put in certain regulations of how long it can be. So your privacy screen would be, so if you were in a townhome, it would be that screen in between the two residents.
Okay.
I'm even finding some with just the smaller lots. People are putting up these, 12, 15 foot high privacy screens. So it's basically just a screen, and it doesn't go the whole length of the fence.
I see. Okay.
And yeah, this bylaw will give us the tools to be able to address that and give us some kind of guideline of kind of the height, how high they can be.
Okay, thank you. That's one thing I didn't understand. Now, you said non-compliance tend to be the open versus closed. That was the majority of them. What is the next biggest? So if we address that in the new bylaw, that will bring a lot more people into compliance. How many others are out of compliance, and for what? Like, obviously things around swimming pools, that has to be enforced, but is it, if we change the bylaw to 6.5 feet versus 6 feet, does that bring more people into compliance?
Yes, those are the two primary, is the height as well as the open versus closed style.
Okay. So if we have a lot of our residents that are not in compliance with the 6 foot, should we be raising that to 6.5?
That's what I'm proposing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
That's
that's
right,
okay. Yeah. So I'm going to propose that. I'm going to reach out to residents at the open house to just get feedback. Some are higher than 6.5, and just getting that feedback to see is 7 feet too high or 6.5.
So if we change the construction qualifications and the height, if we made the height all the way to 7, would that bring everyone into compliance? Is that, basically?
I can't, basically I can't
Basically,
say to
yeah.
everybody, but
Okay.
yeah.
Because I don't want a whole bunch of people out of compliance for bringing this bylaw, and then what, they have to cut their fence down, or we grandfather them, and then other people want to know why they can't have that. The one other question I had is about, there was something in here about electricity running through the fences, and I was wondering about the invisible dog fences, which sometimes run along fences, and if that would be an exception to this.
Yeah, that would have to look into. It was more specific to dealing with those rural livestock properties. So I'll look at the wording of that to make sure that is included.
Good.
Yeah.
And then with the swimming spas and that I thought was something that is great that we're addressing now, and that there is a depth threshold. So it's not your little kiddie pool. It's when it becomes substantial. And I was wondering if we have any sort of bylaws about ponds. Is there anything stopping someone from putting a pond on their property that is, 4.5 feet deep or something like that? Because obviously you're not going to fence. There's nothing about fencing ponds, nor should there be. But do we have anything that talks about the depth of ponds, or is that something that we don't worry about from a safety perspective?
Currently, we do not have anything to regulate ponds.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Morton. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Jennifer. I have been asked numerous times why, if I'll use my own self for example, if I don't want a fence put up, why do I have to pay for it?
Through the chair.
Ms. Nichols.
The Line Fences Act has those provisions in it. It is just specific to a chain link. It wouldn't be if your neighbor wanted to put up a beautiful wood fence across, it would just be that 50% of that chain link. The Line Fences Act is very old legislation. It's one of Ontario's oldest pieces of legislation, and it meant to deal with more of the agricultural and those rural properties. But yeah, we do have that Line Fences Act, that those provisions within that.
So can we not change that for here? I mean, if people are moving into homes and the one neighbor decides to put up a fence and it's going to cost a lot of money, I mean, I can't understand why, even myself, why you would expect people to pay for a fence that they don't want and they possibly don't even like. Mr. Lamanna.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The Line Fences Act does specify that residents have the right to fence on the boundary line. So urban residential neighbors, it's certainly a beneficial benefit to one owner if they want to construct the fence on their own property, but there's still a mutual benefit to the other property owner, and the Line Fences Act comes into play with regards to that benefit to both owners and takes a look at it in terms of a 50-50 cost sharing agreement.
Thank you, staff. Anyone else have any other questions? I think for me, the hot tubs and swim spas is certainly a public education opportunity for us, and I think people are often getting a hot tub and not realizing that they require a permit for it, and that there's certainly a significant safety issue with respect to that. So this is a good opportunity for us to address that. And I think for me, in addition to some of the concerns that Councillor Carruthers raised with respect to the height restrictions, would be to make sure that we're clear about how tall that is. I see a lot of fences that are put on an incline, and so some of them end up being much higher than 6 or 6.5 feet because they're being stepped up and in order to make it even along the top. And it's not appropriate or fair to those residents who are neighboring onto that, because we've got some of these properties are so small that when you've got high fences that are surrounding them, they're basically creating little prisons in the backyard and not actually letting any light into the area for vegetation to grow even. So forget about having a yard. So I think I'm really glad to see that we're trying to address this. I know some of the newer subdivisions, our own staff approved that the developers were putting in fences that didn't comply with our bylaw. So I'm happy to see that we're kind of catching up with our own activities. So thank you, Ms. Nichols, for taking this on. It's obviously a challenging one to do 3 bylaws at once, but I wanted to express my appreciation. The motion before us is essentially that we receive both the report and the presentation, that we direct staff to post the proposed bylaws on our website for feedback and to advertise that, as well as to do some public outreach at our community open house, and that we direct staff to bring back our proposed bylaws. There's 3 of them, following revisions based on feedback received, and even members of council, if you've thought about this again, or you're driving around town and you see something and you'd like to share that, by all means, and that those would be brought back to us on November 5th for approval. I have a motion to that effect, moved by Councillor Foster. Any other questions? All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Chief, do you have anything further to bring forward at this time?
With thanks, nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will turn the chair back to you.
Thank you very much. We're under item I, Legal and Council Support Services, with Councillor Foster in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have nothing on the agenda for today. Mr. Horner, anything further?
Nothing at this time, no.
With that, I will hand it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're at item J, and that's Development Services, with Councillor Crone in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item on our agenda today. Development Services Planning Branch Memo Overview of Proposed Changes to the Provincial Policy Statement. General Manager Rumino, do you have any comments on this?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. This is simply a information update for Council on the proposed changes that the province has put forth on the provincial policy statement, the PPS, and they've opened it for consultation up to October 21st. Town staff have met with regional staff. Regional staff are trying to coordinate regional comments to the province by the end of October. I thought it was important just to let this council give you a breakdown of what the proposed changes are. Again, they're really high level. A provincial policy statement really just sets the high level policy directions for land use matters in the province. My intention here is to provide a set of formal comments for council sometime in October for your consideration, for us to send those down directly to the province and perhaps provide them to the region for them to consolidate into their comments to regional council and then on to the province. Again, at a high level, it's a 3-page memo. Again, some of the changes refer to the increasing the housing supply, expanding the planning horizon from 20 to 25 years, the land supply from a 10 to 12-year supply. Again, the proposed changes don't really impact the green belt. They are maintaining the current green belt protections, as well as the current policies related to the natural heritage system. They're encouraging your municipalities to facilitate those conditions for economic development and investment. But as I said, high-level proposed changes to the PPS, and the next steps here would be to provide council with some comments to the province on their proposed changes from staff for the October meeting for council to consider and forward on to the province if you so choose.
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno. Could I have a mover for this? Councillor Persicini, do we have any questions? Okay. I have one question, Mr. Ramuno. I know certainly we've had some residents talk about this very notion of a provincial policy statement. I've talked to some folks that work at Queen's Park. I've talked to some former cabinet ministers about the importance of a provincial policy statement. And from what I've gathered and researched, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a provincial policy statement is more of a sort of a state of the nation. It's a reflection of where the government sees a general direction of where they would like to go. But more importantly, I think there's a distinction there. Government, Queen's Park, namely, gives us direction by speaking to us through legislation and regulation, and not necessarily provincial policy statements. Have I got any of that wrong?
To you, Mr. Chair, no, I mean, you've captured the essence of it. Again, they are, policy statements. They have to be read in conjunction with the other provincial pieces of legislation, the provincial growth plan, the Greenbelt. But again, there are high-level sort of objectives. If you go through the policy statement, it's not a big document. It's not as lengthy as the growth plan or the Greenbelt Act. It's a few pages. I think it's about 20 pages. But again, it just sets those high-level policy directions for the province-wide. And again, we, the municipalities, become the implementers of the PPS, and we need to ensure that any future decisions are consistent with the, again, PPS and the growth plan when we're dealing with our official plans and zoning bylaws. But you're correct, they are high-level policy directions set by the province dealing with land use matters.
Great, thank you so much. Any other questions? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? All right, none opposed. Motion is carried. General Manager Ramuno, do you have any other comments to make?
No, nothing further.
Any other questions from committee for Mr. Ramuno? Seeing none, back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're at item K, Community Parks, Recreation, Culture, with Councillor Persicini in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item on the agenda here. K, Community Park, Recreation, Culture, and it's a memo on the Ontario Loft update. General Manager Carmason, do you have any comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a memo to keep council informed of related to our workplace environment concern. Staff is confident we've eliminated the source of the nuisance, which was traced back to some nesting birds in an abandoned vent line. We've removed the source and capped the entry point. Staff have worked with a professional contractor to spray the area and thoroughly clean the area, which was isolated to the Ontario Loft. And we are working with our workplace occupational health and safety coordinator, human resources, and our facilities branch to monitor the area over the next couple of weeks prior to staff reoccupying the space. Staff has been kept informed with internal meetings and communications. I just want to stress that as per the memo, this is a nuisance pest that will not transfer any form of disease or infection. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, General Manager Carmason. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Crone. And any questions for the member of the committees? No questions? Can we call a vote? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. General Manager Carmason, do you have any updates or any other comments or anything?
Through you, Mr. Chair, nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Back to Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're at item L, and that's corporate services with Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first item under corporate services has to do with the adjustment of certain property taxes for 2019 and prior years. Mr. Valtrich?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a standard report, and I have nothing further to add. I think the report's self-explanatory. Thank you.
Any questions on this report? I have a motion to accept this report. Councillor Persicini, all in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. The second item has to do under the corporate services communications branch memo for town logo update. Mr. Valtrich?
Madam Chair, this is just a status update with regards to our logo initiative, and there will be further information coming to you in Q4 as the process continues. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Valtrich on this? Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Not a question, just a comment. I thought a lot of work has been done already. I think it's heading in the direction that we had hoped for. So I'm anxious to see when we have it all together a little later on. I think it's going to be very exciting for the community. Thank you.
Councillor Crone?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to staff. Forgive me, I can't remember if in the report it said we would be seeking any feedback at our open house. Will that be happening?
Madam Chair, through you, we'll be having a booth at the open house communications booth, and we'll be certainly talking about that as well as a number of other sort of communications related matters. So certainly that will be a topic of conversation.
Any other questions on this? Hearing none, can I get a motion, please? Councillor Roy DeClemente, all in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Mr. Valtrich, do you have anything else to bring up?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Valtrich under corporate service? Hearing none, Madam Mayor, I'll turn the chair back to you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to reverse just a little bit. We missed the administrative reports here that we have from the region under administration. I don't know if there were any questions on those. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Roy DeClemente. All those in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was trying to get back to that page. I had made a note that whenever we're talking about the Upper York, if we could please tie in the closure of those lagoons. I think that when they were supposed to be closed with the YDSS and they didn't, and I think we have to keep tying those together whenever we talk about the Upper York. It's the closure of the lagoons as well, just to ensure that we don't get bumped on that one again. Thank you.
Thank you. I did call a vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And now we will move to other business. And I'm just wondering who's going to take the farmer's market. Any comments, questions? Yes, well, I am the council liaison for the farmer's market, so I can certainly talk about it. It's self-explanatory in that there has been a request from the Farmers Market Committee to move the market for 2020 for a number of reasons. As the plaza continues to grow out, there's less space for the market to grow. Also, with the number of different stores that are there, the sight lines that were there years ago that were very it was very easy to see the tents and whatever from Yonge Street and from Green Lane is very difficult now. So they're wanting to explore some sites and opportunities, and they're looking at a 3 to 5 year plan to do so. I think they would like to use town property, and it's a good working group, and I think we'll be able to find some answers, but have it done before the end of this year. We've been very lucky to be at that Fieldgate location for a number of years, but I think there might be some better ones now in the town. Mr. Karmazin, did you have anything to add to that as far as some staff that are also involved with the market committee?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we do have a very close partnership with the Farmers Market Committee, and we do have two staff liaisons, being our manager of recreation, community engagement and events, as well as our events coordinator who assists with the market throughout the year. As indicated, this is simply a request for direction to work with our partners with the market to identify some alternate locations and then report back to council again in partnership with the market committee.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, motion to, we've got we have 3 sections here. Council direct staff, council support the creation of a subcommittee, and that a location for 2020 season be received. Thank you, Councillor Cohn. All those in favor? And that's carried. Do we have any other business at this time? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just quickly, some of council may know that I am a volunteer director in the Alzheimer's Society of York Region. September 21st is World Alzheimer Day, and we've been approached and asked through me that we ask the town. I know the town doesn't do proclamations, so I won't be asking for that. But one of the other gestures that we could make for World Alzheimer Day is to they're asking all municipalities in York Region shine a blue light on the evening of September 21st, just to raise awareness and let people know that this is an issue. There are 15,000 folks in York Region that have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia. If you live to the age of 65, you have chances are 1 in 10 that you will be diagnosed with it. If you live to 85, it goes down to 1 in 4. So it's a very real cause and issue, and I would I've spoken with staff. They can accommodate with the lighting, so there's no issues there. I would just like the indulgence of council that we go ahead with this gesture that we can make by shining a blue light on either the town office or another structure to show our support. I would also ask that we ratify this tonight in the council meeting, as the 21st is soon upon us.
Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Crone. I noticed that you are wearing the flower. I guess that's what it is today. Is there not an opportunity that the rest of council could maybe wear that as well?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes. In fact, I just came from an event where we had a donor make a very sizable contribution to the Alzheimer's Society with the Carswell Foundation, and this is a forget-me-not flower, and it's a symbol of Alzheimer awareness. So I will get you all a pin. Great. I really appreciate the suggestion. That's fantastic.
Councillor Crothers.
I 100% behind you on this. I think raising awareness is something as simple as a blue light where people are going to ask what that's about. We should have a communication plan as well to put out a few things on social media that says why the light is shining blue. That's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
I think we're good to go then. Could I have a motion? Do you have a motion ready? Thank you.
I so move.
Okay. All those in favor? And that's carried, and we will ratify it tonight. Thank you. Any other business at this time? Mr. Lamanna.
Just an overview of the workshop on October 8th. I think these topics were previously discussed at committee. So we have the Active Trails and Transportation Master Plan update, the Water Wastewater Master Plan, update, and then we also have a presentation session with regards to the Walkerton Clean Water Center group that's coming out. And it's on drinking water system and the regulatory obligations of council. And that is on October 8th.
Thank you. The Walkerton group, will they be talking about the connection with the safe drinking water and the septic tank inspections that are ongoing in our community now?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that wasn't part of it. It was more along the lines of just Walkerton Clean Water Agency coming in and providing an update on what our responsibilities and obligations are. But if you would like, we could tack that portion of it on in discussions with Development Services.
Personally, I've had a number of conversations about the inspections that are taking place now, and because it's so far removed from where other communities were doing their inspections, people are wondering why the septic tank inspection and the cost and those kinds of things. But I don't think that we've ever shared collectively that it is the safe drinking water of Walkerton that has established the inspections of our septic tanks. I'm not sure what the numbers for our community are with septic tanks, but it's substantial. Thank you. Councillor Roy.
Thank you. Just confirming the timing for that workshop is at 10 a.m. or 9?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the regular scheduled time is 10 a.m.
Thank you.
And I believe the senior management team indicated that it would still be 2 hours.
Thank you. With that, I'm seeing no other business at this time. Could I have a motion?
Sorry, just a question back to committee. Heard we dealt with the Alzheimer's proclamation, but also heard some interest with regards to, I'll call it the pigeon bylaw, but it wasn't necessarily the pigeon bylaw, and the mosquito budget. I'm just keeping in mind that finance is presenting to council on October 16th, and not sure if that work that committee would like to see should be done prior to that, Mayor. Leave that up to you.
So we'll start first off with the pigeon discussion, and I believe that the consensus here was that we should be looking at something, and I'm not sure that staff are able to bring that back as quickly as our next meeting, but let's get it right if it takes a little longer, and make sure we get all the components the first time. Councillor Crothers?
And also with that, there seems to be a more immediate need for that household, especially with the disposal of the waste. So if we can look at our existing bylaws and let that homeowner know where they are non-compliant to try and help out the resident that was in here today.
Mr. Lamanna?
Sorry, just for clarification, my question to committee would be if you want to ratify it tonight so that staff can start working on those. It wouldn't be necessarily coming back at the next meeting, but I think get staff working on it. Thank you.
I'm seeing some nods, so I would take that as a yes.
And we'll just take a motion for those two items then, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Crothers. All those in favor? And that's carried. Anything else to Mr. Lamanna? That I will take a motion to adjourn at 3:38. Moved by Councillor Crothers. All those in favor? That's carried. We'll take a 10-minute break and we'll go into special council.